report.
We are at the end of the day of questioning of Helen Steel at the undercover policing inquiry. We have sort of recapped the end of the deployment of John Dines and the way in which he essentially derailed and affected her ability to fight the McLible case. I'm joined by Alex Hodgson from Past Tense, Robin Wells from Fossil Free London, and we were joined by Evelyn Lubbers from the Undercover Research Group, which has been dragged off for some reason. What have you made of what we've heard? It's only just in the immediate aftermath, and we do have a 15-minute delay. There is something quite shocking at the end, but we might just wait a few minutes before we talk about it, because I do keep getting in trouble for breaking restriction orders, so it's kind of important we don't do that.
Yeah.
So what have you made of it?
Well, it's been quite an emotional day, I think. Helen was asked some very difficult questions about, things that were very difficult to talk about, about the way that John Dines cynically manipulated her, love bombed her, sort of inveigled her into a relationship, and then kind of, isolated her from other people in a way, and then withdrew from the relationship in a way that was very, very upsetting. It seemed like he was having a breakdown. All of that was very difficult for Helen to talk about, and it's something that she's wrestled with for a long time. This, the impact of that, and so some of it was quite shocking. There were times when some of what they were talking about made me physically sick. It is very physically sickening. When some of the things he was writing about to her in letters and then writing about her in reports, it's sickening the way he was focusing a bit on her youth in some of the letters, like the kind of idea of his kind of fetishizing her youthful appearance. It was sickening sexual exploitation, but also cynically for the purposes of the deployment to gain information as well.
Yeah, especially when we know that he was 10 years older than her. She only thought he was 5, and the lawyer focused on that a lot. I think it's worth pointing out, though, that the problem is not that he was a bit older than her than she thought, or that, particular lies he said. The problem is he was a police officer and spying on somebody who was engaging in lawful political activity, and that was deemed enough for the incredible suffering that she was forced to go through, both in the relationship, in the confusion that he brought, and obviously most keenly witnessed today in the aftermath of all those years of trying to unravel what had happened to her, what her life is in relation to this, having to, relive it, to come to this inquiry, to produce a book on the subject, probably news interviews, a huge amount of suffering and trauma that she noted that he doesn't care about at all. And she spoke about the contempt that he had for her feelings, in this great web of lies that he spun, really going to great lengths, I think, to make up loads of things. First his dad dies, then his mum dies, then his dad's not his real dad, he loses his job, he's got a problem with the aunt. There's like so many extra bits of trouble and trauma that he's bringing to her, and she speaks about how he made her feel so responsible for his feelings and his loneliness in the world and what he was facing. So she felt she had to be there for him and almost try to fix his life around him. So when he took a nosedive, as far as she could tell, and had a mental breakdown, it's clear she felt a strong sense of responsibility for that, and also watched her dreams collapse with it.
Evelyn?
Yeah, I think, it's like, it makes you think about the trauma-informed approach of this inquiry, which they claim to have. It has been an issue with all the women who have had to go through all of this. But specifically, Helen, I think, is, she was one of the first women to be deceived and to find out that the love of her life basically was an undercover officer. And, she's been telling me, like, she's also been doing the McLible court case of when Spotlight took some members of Greenpeace to court, was the longest court case ever in the British history. Her life has been taken over by court cases, being spied upon, finding out being spied upon, and then this inquiry has gone on for like 15 years now, and she's been on it for more than 20 years and 40 years for finding him. So her life is basically taken over by big companies and spies of the police and manipulated on, like I know her story, I've known her for a long time, but to hear it sort of build up in this way, like evidenced with all his letters and all the reports, it's like it's awful and sickening, like Alex said.
I mean, I think it was very clear the way in which we saw how on particular days when she had particular hearings as part of the McLibel case, that John Dines would pick a fight. He would cause some sort of huge levels of emotional distress, so that when she was going into court, well, then she needed to have a clear head in order to be able to effectively contest the libel trial, that she was in no fit state to do so. And it almost, it very, very clearly, I mean, because we had such a clear set of memories, of diary entries, of letters, of reports, that you could see the way in which it was very much set to coincide to derail her ability to fight the McLibel case. When we even saw like letters from him suggesting to her, "Oh, you might go mad if you end up doing it." Essentially, he was saying to her, and like it was clear, yeah, he was going to send her mad, and he did his very best to do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a clear, there's not just letters from him, there's reports as well, which make it clear how much earlier he was aware of McDonald's infiltration of London Greenpeace. Long before the writs, months before the writs were served, he was aware. That also, so there's the letters that he's writing to her saying, trying to undermine her ability to resist, to fight the case. Her memory of him starting a fight on the morning of a crucial McLibel hearing, to undermine her, to sort of try and put her, to kind of cause her anxiety and stress and put her out. And, click that with the, Paul Gravitt's girlfriend being kind of influenced by one of the undercover corporate spies. She was influencing Paul's girlfriend to basically influence Paul to apologize and drop out of the case. It's almost like there's a concerted plan to, from the corporate spies and the state spies to undermine their ability to fight that case. So, the collusion, there's loads and loads of evidence about the collusion between McDonald's and Special Branch and McDonald's and police, the wider police. There's lots and lots that we know, and there's loads that we don't know. How much was John being primed to do that? Is he being tasked to undermine Helen emotionally?
Looks like it, and that is shocking. Like so much has come out in the McLibel case, so much disclosure, evidence about, the spies, and also like yesterday in Bob Lambert's evidence, how afraid they were that the STS, the spy unit, was going to be exposed in the McLibel trial, because then, that both. Like it was so important not to exclude, to protect the STS, but also if the influence of the undercover officers would have been exposed in that trial, the whole trial would have gone out, would have gone down. So there's this sort of incredible mingling of facts and things that we know and things that we don't know yet. And there's a lot of timelining and studying to do, to lie side by side what the police knew when and who talked to who, McDonald's talked to within the police that we don't know yet, and how and what exactly the role of the undercover officers was.
I guess we do know from Lambert that he thought it was perfectly legitimate for himself to ensure that the court didn't hear that there were undercover officers involved at the time in producing this fact sheet, and the lawyer Barr was questioning him, saying, So you put justice subordinate to the golden rule. You thought a miscarriage of justice was worth not revealing the existence of this secret unit. And he just kept saying, I don't understand. It was almost the banality of bureaucratic evil. He was like, but my job says I must conceal, so I will harm everyone I can. There was no, I don't know if he truly doesn't understand, or like maybe even more scarily, he truly doesn't understand, but it did seem like a display of somebody pretending not to understand to run the clock down.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's enough time's passed now. We can address the comments made at the very end.
And maybe we could address them by starting with this comment on the screen, which says, live feed has just ended. I stood up in my kitchen and clapped. And in the room, we stood up and clapped as well. Tell us what happened, Tom.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially at the end of the hearing, when asking Helen to return on Wednesday, she'll be back on Wednesday afternoon for further questions. We haven't finished with her evidence yet. John Mitting asked her to reflect on a question that he had. And his question was, he's heard from so many former undercover officers, the majority of whom have said that there were genuine feelings of, well, perhaps I shouldn't say love, which was, I mean, a red flag in itself. And do you reflect that there was any genuine feelings at all from John Dines? I mean, to be so tone deaf as to think it was like appropriate to ask that question.
Really lost the room.
I mean, so much.
Was so gone.
I mean, understandably, everybody was absolutely lividly angry with him for that. I mean, I think Helen's response was like, I don't need to reflect on it. I've had 20 years to reflect on it. And I think she very clearly said, you know, that no, not at all. She thinks he enjoyed the power. She thinks he enjoyed the sexual exploitation. He liked having sex with her, and he liked the fact that he was deceiving her while he was doing so.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy if you spend a lot of time around the inquiry or studying or listening to sometimes be lulled into a false sense of security that Judge Mitting is getting the issues. And then he comes out and makes the most offensive statement that he possibly can, basically reiterating this kind of myth that these spy cops are basically half in love with these women and they're all kind of torn, and it's just nonsense. And like Helen's response, I can't tell you. I've been a friend of Helen's for decades, and I've seen her struggle with that very issue. Did he love me? How much of it was genuine for decades? And after all that time and struggling with that issue, and that then a whole day of giving very traumatic evidence, which is very upsetting. She gave the most unbelievable, strong response. And she came out and said, no, I don't need to reflect on this. He didn't love me. It was cynical manipulation. And Mitting pressed it on her on that again. And she said, no, it's not. And it's the same with all the women. And like, she came out with the most categorical and strong response. And like, it doesn't matter how many years you know Helen. It's just what's been done to her has derailed her life in many ways, but it does not prevent her from coming to to being ultra strong and just completely putting. I mean, she wiped the floor with him basically.
And we and the point about the clapping is we then couldn't help erupting into clapping, and even as Mitting was actually leaving the room, we were all stood up like so that he could leave while still clapping. So it was this we couldn't help but support her.
Yeah, we just found a quote from John Dines when he was interviewed by Operation Sparkler, when he was asked about Helen and his relationship and how he felt about leaving someone behind like this. And he said, and I quote, I couldn't be rat-arsed to leave someone.
I couldn't give a rat's ass. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm Dutch.
I also want to say that it's he totally lost the room, because here we are, women who understand, like many women who understand what this meant, what this undercover police spying, in its harshest edge meant for people, and it's like the most it's a real sort of condensed little nugget of misogynistic view about sexual violence. When I was at university, there was a protest about the university's lack of attention towards sexual violence that students experienced, and someone at the protest spoke about her experience, and she said that after she went and spoke to an official and said what had happened to her and that somebody had attacked her, she spoke at length, and at the end they sort of turned and said, he must really like you. And it really, like, that is just like knitting. It's like deeply offensive. It's totally undermining it. It couldn't miss the point more, and it couldn't betray more of a sort of accidental solidarity with the male view that we've got a day from the moment the day started to when she first met Dines to now, you know, 5:30 when the day ended, to him having left her, traumatized and distressed, and going back and forth to continue to sleep with her and string her along. We've heard that whole story for a whole day, and still the man in charge's reaction is, oh, but he must have quite liked you, mustn't he? And it is sickening.
I think the women in this case, the Cat H women, will have, they will talk with their lawyers. But I do think that the only answer apart from walking out of this inquiry altogether, which was my main feeling, it's like asking Mitting to take back what he said and apologize for it. There's no way this inquiry can continue without him taking back that question. And
the cheek of calling it trauma-informed.
Reflect on what he asked.
It couldn't have been more tone deaf.
It really couldn't have been more tone. Yeah, I mean, it was. I feel quite embarrassed that earlier on today I was saying, how much Mitting was enthralled by what was being said. I completely take that back.
Man, do you take that back?
Yeah, I do entirely. I mean, the sheer level of detail we've listened to today. I mean, just over the last hour or two that since the last update video, we've been taken through the way in which, Dines pretended that he was having this huge emotional breakdown, that he was, he said that he was going away to various places. He told Helen where he was. Helen contacted those places, found out that he wasn't there. He said, I was walking the streets. I'm drinking so heavily. He claimed that he'd gone to Ireland to try and find his biological father because he'd been told that his real father, the person he thought was his real father, wasn't his biological father. So she went. To just finish. Sorry, I'm just going through what happened. He said he was going to Ireland to try and find his biological father because he'd been told his actual father wasn't his biological father. Helen went over there to visit. Said that she decided to do some research to find out into his family history. She found the marriage certificate of his parents. He panicked when he found out that she'd done this and said, oh, come to Ireland to join me. She travels over to Ireland. It turns out he's on the same ferry as her. She doesn't realize this, only finds this out years later. Meets her in Ireland. Everything's back to normal. He comes back to London with her to move back to the home they've made together. He disappears again within 6 hours. Every time that when the end of that lease comes, they move to Yorkshire to stay in this caravan on the sanctuary that a friend of hers is running. Within the next day he leaves, disappears again, disappears to France. This constant back and forth. Every time he reappears, sometimes early hours of the morning, he initiates sex before disappearing again. When we pull out, we just see a pattern of a man who's trying to destabilize her mentally and use her for sex. There's no other way you can look at that long litany of evidence and think anything else. I mean, that was made it so tone deaf. You were going to say?
Sorry for interrupting there, but I think all of these times when he disappears and he's making out he's having a crisis, actually he's doing something.
He's seeing his wife and children.
Seeing his wife and children, or
filing a report,
or filing a report like the next day. But one thing that was funny is I think he said it was in April 1990 or 91, and he said. He had gone off to a funeral or was dealing with one of his mythical parents mythically dying, and the barrister actually said, well, what we know he was actually doing on that day was sitting his DI exam. Failing. Yeah. Which got a big cheer.
Another big cheer.
Yeah. I so, but I think the kind of increased on destabilization of when he's pulling out and his deployment is ending. Is also reflecting, it's it's a trade craft. It's a process that is written down. It's set out. This is how you do it. It's not something he's doing on the fly. They all did this, and it's written down that this is set out. It's a what's the word? It's not a kind of breakdown. It's a what's the
Setup.
what's the word for something when it's part of the system?
Systemic.
Systemic. It's systemic. It's a systemic set of abuse, but it's a set of procedures to follow as well. It's like it's presented as a kind of terrible breakdown, and it's causing terrible impacts to the women concerned. But it's just like a set of, now I'm doing A, now I'm doing B, now I'm doing C.
Yeah, I mean, what was very clear is whilst it appeared to Helen at the time as being this random set of events, it was actually, working to a particular calendar around everything else that was going on in her life at the time.
One completely different thing, to continue on what I just said, is that I realized that halfway the day, when we were going through all these letters to show all the manipulation, Mitting kind of said that I've read all the letters.
Yeah.
Is it, this was like pretending to ask if Helen needed a break, but also he was saying, can we skip this? I've read all it, I know it, and I don't need to hear more. Which is also, this is, it's sort of defying the purpose, and also, the barrister.
Oh, fucking hell.
Oh God.
Somebody's just, it was on earlier.
Okay, good. Shall I say it again?
No.
Just carry on.
Okay. It's kind of, sort of destroying the build-up, the strategy the lawyer and Helen have. It's like, and also it's like this sort of, I don't need to hear this. I know all that. I know what you're going to say, which is equally awful.
And I think more creates a picture that he wasn't really listening, because the letters are very important. And I think when Alex said that it was sickening, I think much of that is actually what was written in the letter about Helen's body, about how young she looks, that really, that actually when you see there were many things he wrote about having the mushies and being so in love, and things that just felt quite distasteful when you know who he is and who he actually was when writing these letters. But particularly gross was the sexualizing stuff, especially when, as Tom pointed out, he continued to seek sex from her, even as he was emotionally destabilizing her, coming back into her life, leaving again, And just to highlight two of the things that Tom mentioned in the actual story that I think it's easy to skip over and not realize how dark they are. He moved his life to a caravan with Helen. Like, they moved in together. It was like a big stage for her and for them. Her parents sent them a note, oh, you're moving in. And then he literally drops her off and leaves. He leaves her there alone, this caravan surrounded by snow that, feels like really out in the woods, in the wilderness. You'd want someone with you, who's going to help you stoke the fire. This image of like, a coupley sweet adventure is then suddenly her alone in the middle of nowhere in a drafty caravan in the cold. Like, what? That's really dark. And also the ferry story. She goes to Ireland thinking she's going to help him. He's not in Ireland. He just gets on the same ferry as her and hides in a different place on the ship, so that he can, when she gets out, he can be like, oh, hey, I was already here. It's psychotic. It's really dark that he didn't need to go to all these lengths. It wasn't useful for him to find information about political groups. He was inventing his whole little evil spider web of all these random things that have apparently happened in her life, and isolating her from her friends.
I think that's what makes Mitting's comment actually all the more shocking, because it immediately followed on from that. It was so clear that he was isolating her. It was so clear that he was deliberately destabilizing her on the morning of the McLibel hearing. And then the next thing that Mitting says is, oh, did he love you really? Basically, it's just like rubbish. And I mean, it does come down to, what is this inquiry for? What is it for? Like, Mitting has made it clear that he thinks that he's gathered enough evidence to write his report. And that's that's what the purpose of the inquiry is. But it's not. The purpose of the inquiry is about the stories of what happened to people, what happened to us, what happened to all of us, and what happened to particularly to the women who were like most seriously exploited and abused. That the inquiry is not. He is not taking account of that, and he has to withdraw that comment.
And I think that the deep point that's like really that really is not only Mitting as a man in this situation who's representing patriarchal values and misogyny, and whether, you know, quite without meaning to, it's him as a judge. So he's spent his career following the advice of police, listening to their reports, to their, you know, trusting them as reputable professionals to put other people in jail. If he is to really allow himself to see, you know, this rape culture, this grooming, this like despicable behavior from these police officers as purely manipulation, as purely abuse, as purely like using their power over others, then he's the head of the grooming gang, and he doesn't want to be in that position. Like his reputation, his status, his career rests on him buying into the police as a reputable force. And if he really listens to Helen and the other women who were abused, he has to face that they're totally disreputable. And he can't do that because it would put his very identity in crisis. And that's why we can't have justice within a system that is founded within the establishment, because anybody making the decision has had to rise through the ranks of the establishment to get there, and therefore they've got far too much skin in the game to ever give a proper condemnation of the real misery, suffering and deception right at the heart of it.
Yeah, bang on, absolutely. I think that really goes to the heart of it, and what is so flawed about this entire process. And it is it is incredibly frustrating that that this whole process is essentially for his benefit. It's for Mitting's benefit to write the report. That's how it's set up. That's how it all works. Everyone's here to help him. I mean, that is the language of the inquiry. We're there to help the chair. I mean, I don't think. I think all of us are here for the journey rather than their destination. I don't think anybody thinks that the final report at the end is particularly significant, because at the end of the day, the process was set up in order to make recommendations, to learn the lessons, so that future political policing undercover work can be done better and more efficiently for the state. So, I mean, you know, this.
And how long has it been dragged out for, and what's currently happening?
Right.
You know, I was watching it thinking, this is going on now, you know, in our movements. This is who's doing this, who's writing these letters now. Like, and what does this all, of course it has huge significance for the historical record and for justice for these people who were spied on and for all of you who were affected. But like, in practical terms, what can we need to see change. We need to see this being applied, and it's being so dragged out. And you know, they've changed the law to make it even more possible for the police to abuse people while undercover. And that law was changed with Keir Starmer's abstention. So
and I mean, not only did he abstain on it, also Starmer kind of made the political cover. He made the argument in favour of it, saying it's just putting on a footing what's existed anyway. It's necessary. We live in a much darker time, really, than the times we're looking at.
It's true. I mean, it's true that, I mean, all, you know, many of us here have been, you know, involved with this inquiry since the beginning. We've been involved in trying to, you know, reveal these undercovers even before the inquiry. We've always fought for this to be, you know, a different process, to be, you know, to have a different oversight, to collect evidence in different ways, and to be aimed at different results. And obviously we've been fighting for that, and we're still fighting for that. However, you know, it's, you know, we can sometimes see that that's not succeeding, I think. Mitting is not getting it. The establishment do not want those things to be revealed. I mean, getting it, of course he doesn't get it. The Garrett Club mentality still stays strong. But I mean, I think all we can do is continue to support each other, try and get as much evidence as possible out, continue our own investigations out in the world as well. We know that it's only a partial answer to all of this.
And I think really importantly for people watching, to spread attention about the Spy Cops scandal, you can share the hashtag Spy Cops. There's so much great information about this undercover policing inquiry and all the stories at the heart of it. So the problem that we're facing at the moment is not getting into the public domain. That's happened. Like, nobody can say this is crazy people or a conspiracy. Look, we're here in like the International, Dispute Resolution Center speaking about this with lawyers, with judges, with representatives from the state. So it's in the public domain. The problem we now face is public attention. It's getting people to be aware of what's going on. It's putting pressure on the police force. So this can't happen in such egregious terms again. Or that if it does, there's a sense that the public will be alert to it, will dig it out, will cause this to reoccur. Unless, shame won't change sides unless we have unless we ensure that there's a huge amount of light cast on the abuse that happens by powerful men. So it's really, really important to share this in a way that's accessible for people and get the word out about spy cops.
Yeah, absolutely. Just quickly on, I think Helen was a fantastic witness. Over the last 11 years since the inquiry started, there's been, there's no way. We only hear because of Helen in lots of ways. Yeah. And there was a lot of concern about when it came time for her to give evidence, how she would cope with that. I think she did incredibly well. I think that Daisy Monaghan, the lawyer who was asking the questions, the assistant counsel to the inquiry, I thought did a good job. I think that went very well. Yeah, she delivered it with plenty of humour and seemed quite understanding in the scheme of things. At
one point, she complimented Helen's photography and said, "Bit of a shame about the subject matter." Yeah. And it was like pictures of John Dines. It was amazing.
Yeah. We've had quite a lot of comments. Just to go through them. So the life we just ended. Bravo, Helen. Not admitting, I'm afraid. Was Dines being paid in Big Macs? His cynical attempts to derail Helen are so clear now.
And that's about the collusion between McDonald's and...
Yeah, I could hear the applause on the live feed. That's always good to hear that sort of thing. Yeah. Mitty needs to be schooled on coercive control. Absolutely.
100%. And there's another comment about he needs to be schooled in narcissistic sociopaths. I totally agree with both those comments. Yeah. There are people who just are coercive controllers and just are sociopaths. It seems like he doesn't realise that. Doesn't want to believe it. That's the case for one of the officers.
One thing that occurred to me at some point in today's hearing, there's a passage in Richard Cole's book where he accidentally outs his brother Andy Coles as one of the SDS spy cops, where he says, "My brother was living in Brixton spying on nasty types," which is me, my mates, the sort of Brixton anarchists, hunt sabs, squatters. And I just, in terms of, in respect with Helen and the people who had fought to expose this, I just thought, there's the love and the solidarity and the comradeship and the absolute care that people have for each other, and that how that buoys people up, and the importance of support and looking after each other. I mean, who are the nasty types if you compare the John Dineses, Andy Coles, Mark Jenners, Bob Lamberts, the disgusting human beings who treat humans with absolute contempt. And the love on the other side is really very obvious to me, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that some more comments. I'll go through those before we finish. It's done an opposite in procedure, horrifically gross and inhumane. Yeah, I agree. I don't mind that one. There's one from Frank Bennett there. Missing has once again demonstrated a total lack of empathy and the wrongs done to many women who were young women at the time. A full retraction of his question should be issued with a full apology. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We can only hope that actually is the case. Thanks for joining us. Please, there's 114 people watching. Only 3 have liked this video. It makes a huge difference how many people like and share these videos, how visible this stuff is.
You want to watch it go up.
Yeah, please make it go up. As ever, our coverage of the inquiry it's completely shoestring operation, as you'll probably tell from the numerous technical problems that constantly happen every time I go live. But we really appreciate your support. If you're able to help, please do so. If you're able to come along and you want to be one of the people sat in these seats, please come along and do so. If you're able to spread the word in any way, as Robin said, use the hashtag SpyCops, share this stuff, pass your own comment. It all really helps. Anybody want to add anything else?
That sounds great.
Massive love and respect to Helen Steel.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again on Monday. Who have we got on Monday? I can't even bloody remember. Edmondson, yes. Keith Edmondson, who was the Detective Chief Inspector of the Special Demonstration Squad in the mid to late 90s. He was described by John Webb yesterday as indecisive and prone to statements of disbelief about things which were pretty obvious to everybody else. So that sounds like it's going to be interesting. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on Monday morning, 10 a.m. Bye for now.